Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Stuart Shine. It's that time. Welcome back to another edition of Try Beginner's Luck. We are still here, and this is the show where we are the transition area. And so I've been thinking a lot about what that means to me. And when you think about a transition, it's just like a place to go. Like some of us are transitioning from tri-curious to being a beginner, or a beginner to being, a semi-veteran, a veteran to being elite, elite to pro, and on and on and on. We're always in transition in life. And so I didn't think about this much when I announced it last week, when I said, like, this is the transition area. We are not going to not deal with the elephant in the room, but we are going to deal with it head on, just like we as athletes do. And so it just became making more sense as I sat with it that we are always on a transition. So this particular podcast is a transition area of stories that will inspire you, that will encourage you, and that will bring joy, insightful content that makes you want to continue to train even when the world is chaotic. So welcome to your space to decompress and not distract, to control the controllables, and to fuel the fire. I have another guest that today I actually got to meet this guest. We met first virtually, and it was around Marine Corps marathon time. And I was just like, oh, well, looking forward to meeting you. I think, maybe a post that I did with MCM, and we exchanged some gentle reflections. And then I actually got to meet this person in January at the USA Triathlon's Endurance Exchange. And I immediately knew who he was. And I know he probably thought I was this crazy woman, like, oh my gosh, hey, how are you, Mr. Shine? Oh, and I gave it away. But it's okay, because I am excited that he is a Shiner, or his literal last name is Shine. I made my last name Shines on purpose because that's what I felt like I do. But this gentleman, let me tell you a little bit about him. His coaching philosophy is built on the 80-20 rule and metabolic wellness. He integrates mindfulness and present moment awareness in training, bringing athletes to connect with their bodies rather than just start staring at their Garmin. He isn't just coaching, he is building a collaborative, meaning that he treats the athletes as a partner in the journey. So today, we get to talk to someone that's at the intersection of performance, care, and long-term sustainability. What stands out most about his work is his commitment to education and empowerment. He meets the athlete right where they are, whether they're just starting out or refining years of experience, and help them to build trust in their process rather than chasing perfection. This kind of grounded, athlete-centered care is especially important for beginners who often feel overwhelmed by conflicting advice and pressure to do everything right. Say that again, I will. This often brings around that overwhelm by conflicting advice and the pressure to do everything right. But he brings clarity without ego, structure without rigidity, which is exactly the kind of voice we need in this space. I am excited to explore more of his philosophy, his journey, and how he supports athletes in building sustainable relationships with sport and nutrition. Ladies, gentlemen, every person, everybody, I get to welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck audience, Mr. Stuart Shine. Welcome to Try Beginner's Luck. How you doing?
Pretty amazing, especially after that introduction. Thank you, Nishant. It's a pleasure to be here. Super humbled, grateful, excited, nervous, all of that stuff. But yeah, that was amazing. And I could not have not, nor probably will not say it any better when it comes to representing what I'm trying to do in the endurance sports and nutrition space. So yeah, hello.
Hi. Well, thank you. So you're on the West Coast.
I am.
You came all the way to the East Coast to sunny Orlando, Florida to learn more and to get integrated in sports. Actually, how long have you even been a coach?
So officially, just over 2 years. So August of 23, right? Yeah. So that's when I launched Shine Collaborative Sports and Nutrition. I was laying on my couch in Oceanside, California, where I reside, sick with COVID. COVID finally caught up to me after traveling to the East Coast and coming back home.
Don't do that to us, Stuart. Don't do that to us. You will not blame COVID on us, okay?
So yeah, that's when I officially launched the business, and it literally was. I'm here, lots of time to think. I was home for probably 15 days before I can get back to work, and I had informally been coaching some athletes, using the Training Peak software, having conversations consistently at work and in my social circles about running and swimming and cycling and marathoning and just training in general, nutrition as well. And so I just wanted to formalize it. And to be quite honest, I've always been a coach, not always, but my older brother, it runs in the family. My older brother is a massive influence in my life. And he actually coached me when I was playing youth football. So when I was 14, 15 years old, aging out of youth football, getting into high school, he's 7 years older than me. He coached, a couple of my last years when he was a young adult. So on the football field is where I got my first introductions and playing youth sports. And then fast forward till about 2009, 2010, I got a family of my own and I started coaching, baseball, t-ball, soccer, and then youth football was really my passion. So if you can if you can wrangle a bunch of 5 to 7 year olds and put them in a helmet and shoulder pads, get them to line up, score touchdowns, and make tackles, and teach them to block, and continue to come back, it's not because it's not easy. It's difficult, and I enjoyed it, and so I got a lot of opportunity to do some instructorship and teaching in my line of work as well, and it just is really what I started to gravitate towards. I really enjoy the teaching, the coaching, the mentorship, and learning. You're either doing a thing that you love, and I'm an endurance athlete. You're learning about it, and you're teaching it. So I try to consistently do those kind of three things. That's pretty much how I got into the coaching biz.
Interesting. So, football is what got you into coaching,
Yeah,
but you ended
primarily.
up playing basketball and volleyball in high school, right?
I did, yeah. So I went to a magnet school, and I grew up in a small town, small for Los Angeles, in Reseda, California. It's in the San Fernando Valley, about 20 miles north of the city of Los Angeles, just over the Santa Monica Mountains. And I went to the same school from the time I was in the fifth grade to the time I graduated. And didn't have a high school football team, but I've been playing football from the time that I was like 7 years old to the time I was 15. So my sophomore year, I wanted to transfer to the local high school, and I was playing left cornerback, and I was ready to go. I had all the aspirations of stardom, and grew up watching high school football, and the seniors in Southern California back in the 90s was massive, much like it is today, right? High school football in Southern California is nationally dominant. But my mother wouldn't let me leave. And I was in a very good school, getting good grades, and she didn't want me to disrupt my life. And so I picked up a basketball and a volleyball and started, those two ball sports, just transition. It's much like what we have to do in triathlon. We have a race plan. Things don't go according to plan. We get, mechanical issues, or our gut starts messing with us. So we got to come up with with solutions to those problems. And so I just pivoted and, you know, play volleyball in the off season and basketball full time mostly. So,
Interesting. And then as you became an adult, came back to your football to be a coach. And so,
did.
how did you get your start in triathlon? Because I think
Yeah.
I'm trying to backtrack somewhere, but I'm looking for my entryway. So,
Mm-hmm.
how did you get your start in triathlon?
I was a huge just sports fanatic in general as a kid. I'm a Yankee fan and 76ers fan. I mean, if it was a ball sport, the Olympics were huge. I just loved athletics, and I always played sports as a kid. So I remember watching the World Championships in Kona on like ABC Wild World of Sports. I think back in the day they would do like a couple weeks later they would play it as an event, pre-recorded or whatnot. And that stuck in my mind as just this massive effort. And how do people do something like, you know, swim that distance and bike that distance and run a marathon after doing all that? And so fast forward to 2014, um, I'm recently retired, but at that time I was active duty military, and I was on a deployment to Darwin, Australia, the Northwest Territory. They call it the Outback. Australians don't even like going there. And so, but that's where the Marines go to train. So we were just my small unit team was doing like a team building exercise, and we wrote down our bucket lists of things that we wanted to do in life. Some people wanted to climb, Mount Kilimanjaro, and other people wanted to, swim the English Channel, a variety of wild feats, not all athletic in nature. And I remember writing down, I wanted to run a marathon. I wanted to do an Ironman. I wanted to be a triathlete. I wanted to take my children, to Kenya to visit. I remember the list. And so during that 6 month deployment, a good buddy of mine would exercise all the time. And they had a very nice pool there. And I said, let's just do a triathlon. We rented bikes from the local, in the military, they have like morale, welfare, and recreation centers that you can use to get sports and recreation activities going, and they sponsor trips and whatnot. So we rented some beach cruisers, mountain bikes, some things, swam, got on those things, rode around in the summer of Australia, which was very, very hot, and then ran like a half marathon off the bike just for a training session. I had a flat tire that I didn't know about, and rode on that thing for like 15 miles. And then he almost became a heat case because it was very, 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 very hot in uh, March, April, May timeframe in Darwin, Australia. So that was my first swim, bike, run activity. Before that, I've done a lot of run, swim, runs is what we used to do for physical training in the Marine Corps. And so I'd had a lot of practice at doing. I liked that transition. It's just pretty cool. And as a leader, I would take my Marines. We would run to a local pool. We would swim, and then we'd run back. And that session was, I didn't know then it was, 2 out of the 3 components. And so when I came home from that deployment, I signed up for a local sprint triathlon in the San Diego area, which I live, 40 minutes from it. And everybody knows San Diego it's like the home and the birthplace of triathlon. And yeah, I remember it was like, I don't know, March, April timeframe, Mission Bay, Xterra, and that was it. I remember parking and setting up transition and having what did I have? I had like a Raleigh Revino 3 by road bike with aero bars on it. That was my first bike. And the gentleman next to me was obviously a veteran and had this now it would probably be a $10,000 bike, and he just looked the part. But he was kind and gentle and offered a lot of advice. And that I just remember coming away from that race feeling included and feeling seen, and just having a good experience with the dude, for the 5 minutes that we had a conversation and transition. And yeah, that was my first sprint triathlon, and fell in love. And that was the primary. I was doing a lot of CrossFit and high intensity type training prior to that. And I quickly fell in love, and that started training in earnest. About 3 years later, I got a coach and tried to, optimize my training. And then I've just been training ever since, and then got into coaching largely because of my first coach. Shout out to Matthew Shanks and SOL Racing. And that was like my first introduction to like the team environment and having a coach and wearing a triathlon kit with, your team's brand on it. And yeah, that's the story. That's how I got into the sport.
I'm curious, Stuart. You mentioned Marine,
Yeah.
but in my introduction, I mentioned mindfulness and
Mhm.
mindful. And what I do know about you, I'm, like you're very zen, and I'm not understanding because I'm being a little stereotypical when I say most Marines are raw and,
Yeah.
very big personality, but
Yeah.
you're very zen, like calm. Like I'm almost in here like, yes, I can go to sleep listening to you talk. Tell me about that because I'm wondering, okay, well, first of all, let me back myself up. Thank you for sharing your story. But I'm
Yeah.
very curious about the mindful portion of it now. I think just
Yeah.
because hearing that you were a Marine and that, you would send people your training ground in Darwin and doing the run, swim, runs, and that was your first taste of it. And then you come to the United States or come back home from deployment and it's almost if you added an element in there that kind of switched you, or were you always this calm?
No, no, no,
Okay, I'm just making sure because I'm like, this is
no, no, calm, no, no. It was a deliberate and intentional attribute that I sought after some time. I was very, especially as a, my early 30s, mid 30s, kind of senior level management in the Marine Corps. Just one day, and maybe it was a couple of days, I don't know, but um, I had a couple of conversations with some folks, and specifically to like my leadership style, right? Like all you learn early in the Marine Corps is getting screamed at by drill instructors and instant obedient to orders when you go to recruit training, your initial introduction into the Marine Corps to convert you from a civilian to a Marine. And so that model, that authoritative, get screamed at, go do a thing, has a place for a finite amount of time. But what we've did, is use that same model of leadership throughout 20 plus career. And so every engagement and interaction you have this model of, I'm just going to tell you what to do. I'm going to scream at you if I don't like what you're doing. There's a little belittling in there, all those things. You get where I'm going. And so at some point, I spoke to some wise people that were like, maybe you can develop some other tools. And then I learned, I did a little bit of reading. I watched some other folks, and I just kind of got tired of being that type of leader. And there was a specific amount of time my Marine Corps career where we were at war as the global war on terrorism and all that. And so when you deploy with folks, you don't want fear. You need mutual respect. You need to know that people um, trust you and trust you implicitly, that you're capable and proficient, but that you care about them as human beings. And that's very hard to do when you're taking some of these just purely directive, authoritative kind of positions. And so I started to just kind of develop some different tools, active listening and being a little bit more of a team builder in that regard. And that 2014 Darwin experience of like, what motivates you? How do we build a better team together? If I know more about you, these are some kind of classic ways of developing a team, right? Um, yeah. And so kind of the contradiction that you might be seeing between the quintessential or maybe the stereotypical Marine and someone who focuses on mindfulness, quite honestly, and pretty ironic, is that also on that deployment, I had a very good friend. His name is Brad Driver. He's a retired sergeant major. He was the first person that introduced me to yoga. We were doing like P90X. I don't like if that even exists anymore, if that's like an ad problem or something. But so in that P90X had like a yoga component, and he was a big CrossFitter. I didn't really know too much about CrossFit, so we did a lot of functional fitness together. And I would literally walk over to his room, and we would throw this video on, and we would just do the exercises. And then we started to do yoga at the end, and I was hooked. We didn't really start meditating, but yoga is essentially meditation. And so that also, triathlon and mindfulness and meditation and yoga all were introduced at relatively the same time, while being a Marine. And Brad Driver was different. He was much different. He was the soft spoken, never raised his voice sergeant major, which in Marine Corps folklore is the quintessential screamer leader kind of person. The highest enlisted non-officer rank in the Marine Corps is sergeant major, and sergeant major at that time he was a first sergeant, just one rank below. But he was just chill. He was a South Carolina native, and I'd never heard him raise his voice in the 2.5, almost 3 years that I worked with him. And he was an example of how to get people to trust, believe, and work for you without having to like raise your voice. Quite honestly, there's some great examples. Tony Dungy was one of those type of NFL coaches, and so I liked how that felt. And being different and unique has always been, not for the sake of being different, but because that's what resonates with you is always. It doesn't surprise me that you asked me the question about what are you? Because folks would ask me that all the time in the Marine Corps. I'm a plant eater, triathlete, Marine who was part of infantry units, so ground combat units, and folks are like, it doesn't add up. I don't get it. I follow passion, and so how I got into the military was because I just was always been very passionate about the idea of like service and like the warrior monk, regardless of of politics, it was something that was really, I couldn't let go. I couldn't know that I would live a life without military service because it was just something I was in love with. It was it like consumed me for a period of life. And I let that dream go in college, for largely societal, political, historic reasons. Being a person of color in this country, was I was conflicted. And when I graduated college and came home, it was something that I reconciled, and it's something that I wanted to do, and it brought me massive amounts of experience, and, suffering as well, on many levels, but massive teacher. So developed the type of person that I am. So that's how those two kind of pathways for mindfulness, endurance sports, and the Marine kind of intersected.
Thank you for letting me divert my own podcast because I think I needed to rest. I needed to hear that so that the tension in my own mind
Yeah,
would settle. And what you shared is so impactful. And I think it's a teachable moment for so many, especially me, in terms
yeah,
of when you're leading folks and how you lead and how you're perceived and
yeah,
y- y- being able to use that wisdom and what can you get more out of people from a change of tone and your tenor. And I really appreciate the deliberate, I think that's the word you used, deliberate change that you made. But also, what you snuck in there is the reconciliation you had to do in going to school, coming back home, and for your own personal reasons. And, we're here in Black History Month and making the choice to serve your country. That is powerful.
mm,
And if you're okay with it, I would welcome you to share a little bit more, especially being in what we're experiencing right now in our country
yeah,
and seeing how there's so many people who are wrestling. And I did mention this was a transition zone. Last week I mentioned we're not going to shut a blind eye to it, but
no,
I also want to make sure I'm speaking about it in a way that is helpful and not necessarily going completely political, because sometimes that doesn't always matter when you can speak truth in a way that can be helpful so that people can gain understanding.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I'll say this. Service has a variety of applications, and even like not the play on words, but the use of the word service, and that root word serve. Our ancestors in this place um, did so unwillingly. Enslavement, servitude was was our beginning story here, and we are the foundational servants, surveyors, builders, architects, toilers, farmers, scientists, caretakers, nurses, doctors, all of the things interwoven so intricately to the fabric of this nation that who am I to deny my service? And so when I think of the U.S., I don't think of it in one lane. Um, it's not just founding fathers, Constitution, Bill of Rights, where we are today, Democrats or Republicans, independents, but it is paying homage to, the Buffalo Soldier, the Tuskegee Airmen, uh, the all-female Black women units that served in World War II. Like these hidden stories of folks who served a nation that quite honestly did not want, but needed their service. Um, that's what resonated with me as well. So that's what helped reconcile the friction and the, at times, visceral response to what I had. I mean, I'm a child of, born in the 70s, reached adulthood in the mid 90s. Like these were very activist times for the hip hop movement, civil rights, social movements, spoken word, and speaking about injustice in this country. I mean, I grew up raised listening to Taught by KRS-One, Boogie Down Productions, Public Enemy, like Ice Cube, Post NWA. Like these were Paris from Northern California. These were, you know, my Gil Scott Herons. These are my poets. Those were my James Baldwins. And to absorb that narrative and that story and those stories and still put on a uniform was a contradiction to many. I attended an historically Black college, Clark Atlanta University, um, and enlisted in the Marine Corps after that. And I remember seeing um, some ROTC graduates who commissioned in the Marine Corps while I was at Clark. And it was a small percentage, but that was just a little trace of what I would be. And I would bump into one of those cats many, many years down the road in the middle of the desert, like, we went to Clark together, you know. Um, we walked the same path, so to speak. So our service to this concept of the United States is so very, very foundational. So a lot of it was to pay homage and respect ancestry. That was it for me.
No, thank you for sharing. I don't know if anyone else is in this real, your whole parasympathetic mode is just relaxed. So I am going to warn you, and I probably should put a disclaimer out. Do not listen to this if you are driving, and do
Yeah.
not listen to this if you're on the trainer or working out, because
Yeah.
you will just fall into this like Zen mode. And this is everything I didn't know I needed to
Mm.
hear.
Yeah,
And I didn't
that's
even know this like I didn't even know this about you. Like I think I observed you. We didn't really talk a lot at Endurance Exchange,
no, pretty busy. Yeah.
but I I'm an observer of humans, right? And you were always kind but very to yourself. You would speak, you would be in your huddles, you were there, you were learning. And who knew all this would would come out? Like I just did not know, but
Yeah.
I'm glad that our first interaction was way before Endurance Exchange, and getting to
Too.
meet you in person and now getting to hear you, it just makes me more of a fan and more curious to hear more of your story.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to transition to hear more of your story, especially as it
Thank you for
relates
your
to sport
kindness. No, that's
and being a coach, and what that's like as you have this range of experience that you bring into the sport, and you've also had to make some really significant changes in order to become a better version of who you are. And that's oftentimes what many are in search of when they come to sport. They want something different so that they can become someone better or a better version of themselves. And so, as we transition into that, what do you share with your clients and athletes about this transition to becoming better?
yeah. That they deserve it. They're worthy, they're valuable, they're capable. It will not be easy. They did not arrive at whatever position they are in physically, mentally, emotionally, nutritionally, fitness wise overnight. And making that change is not going to be an overnight process, nor should it be. I think we're inundated with a lot of fast acting solutions, potentials for fast acting solutions, and the focus on the process shifts us away from fast in regards to start and end result kind of thing, to where my niche or the athletes that I really thrive interacting with are those that enjoy training, not for the purpose of racing, but for the purpose of making life change or being able to just kind of analyze self on a day-to-day basis, doing things that are difficult. Not every session has to be killer. It's just another process to be meditative and to notice how I feel in the swim. How does my hand feel? There's just multiple opportunities to check in and notice all the details of each one of those. So triathlon is just like the gift that keeps giving, because you get swim, bike, run, strength, mobility, then you throw in a little meditation. You get all these opportunities to really focus on yourself and how you respond to each one of these sports. And then you see your mind changing and your body changing. And then you can dial in how you're fueling for things. And so it's so multifaceted. But that's the first thing I tell them is that you deserve this. Don't think that you don't. Uh, you deserve to do hard things. And what you will see after just 3 weeks, we look back at details. Like, remember when your heart rate was doing, you were so concerned that your heart rate was too high. 3 weeks later, you're doing the same type of run, faster, stronger, and your heart rate is lower. So in real time, we can see what the process turned into. But I think that's what I've grown to learn to say and to focus on is that you deserve to be in this space. And regardless of what you bring or how you arrive, as an individual, you deserve to give yourself the gift of fitness and strength and mobility and mindfulness, all those things. Yeah, you just don't need to ignore it. You earned it.
I you made a comment that I told a friend the other day. I was like, you deserve to try. You
Yeah,
deserve this. So
yeah,
I love that
yeah.
that is a philosophy that you share that is something that you share with your athletes. What would you say all encompassing, and I think you hit on it, is the Shine collective, excuse me, the Shine collaborative philosophy at its core essence?
It's building the process of building resilient and durable athletes mentally, emotionally, physically. And that takes mindfulness. It does.
Mm.
And without a doubt, that's the core of what we're trying to do at Shine Collaborative is to produce that. We're not here for a race. That is part of those are components of fitness and lifestyle. But we absolutely want to create durable, mentally, physically durable athletes with a progressive approach to all things. Strength training, how we bear load, how we swim, bike, and run, whether we're pure runners or pure cyclists or triathletes. But it's that. It's a systematic process of building durability. Yeah, for sure.
So in that mindfulness, because I think that's a key part that sometimes could be left out or just
Mhm.
not focused on as intently as you do.
Yeah.
When you mentioned mindful training, is there a specific mental drill in addition to yoga and meditation that you give your athletes when they hit dark places in their training and in their performance when they're racing that helps them to get out of that headspace?
So we try to talk about managing dark moments in the same way that we manage the light and easy and positive and joyful moments is that we expect them to happen and to be fearful or to be disappointed or to be even upset at ourselves for having doubt or for being afraid or for wanting to stop is counterproductive to the process. The process is supposed to have those. They belong. The dark places belong there. It's how we exist there. Learning to suffer mentally and physically it is a process. Now, we don't want to cultivate negative thoughts. We just want to identify them and recognize that they're happening. What I mean by cultivating is that we don't dwell, we don't fuel them with belief. Rather, we just identify that, oh, I'm suffering. This interval is painful. I'm doubting myself. I've been here before. I can hold on to this physical discomfort, and I'm going to come out on the back end of it, one interval at a time. Oh, hey, I've got 15 more meters. I'm done. You know, recognizing that both the darkness and the light are supposed to be there. They are two sides of the same coin, and we shouldn't rate our value, our self worth, based on how much darkness exists, rather how we respond to it. Congratulating ourselves for feeling good about a workout, and in the same capacity, saying, you know what, I'm going to have bad ones, knowing it's going to happen, or I'm going to have difficult ones or dark ones. And when it does happen, like I expected that. That was going to happen at some point, and I'm okay with it. And peeling back the onion a little bit and figuring out why was I doubting myself. And so we talk about those type things. Some of them become mechanical solutions to it. Um, Injury is a big one that brings us to dark places. because we just want to be healthy and we want to be capable. But much like fitness, we can't be at a certain peak all the time. We have to enter a recovery adaptation. Sometimes that's forced through injury. And so it gives us an opportunity to pivot. Okay, I can't run. I'm about to lift the house. I'm about to swim and bike a whole lot. So looking at adversity as opportunity, these are ways that we just try to discuss like the day-to-day athlete um, darkness, that arises.
I really appreciate what you said about darkness and light should exist.
Yeah.
And then I heard this like little pun, and that's why you have the Shine Collective. And that's why you're Stuart Shine. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Anyway, I obviously my social media handle is Mashonda Shine, so I
I saw
absolutely
that. Yeah.
love that
Yeah.
analogy because I do believe that without darkness we cannot shine. Period. Like it's a necessity to have the darkness so that you can shine and have a light into those areas and illuminate those areas.
Yeah.
Another area in sport that I think is often thought about as the fourth discipline is nutrition. And
Yeah.
that is another focal point of your practice and what you coach is the sports nutrition and metabolic health.
Yeah.
What is a health halo or food or habit that triathletes swear by that you think is actually holding athletes back?
Well, I think not fueling appropriately or at all before sessions. And that's often informed or kind of mandated or influenced by work schedule. So there's a lot of athletes who will get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. They're in the pool by 5 o'clock in the morning, or they're on the trainer at 3:30. And it's very difficult to one to make sure you're getting enough rest prior to that. Like you really got to go to bed early to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then to fuel your body, especially before a hard swim session, and then you've got a bike session later on in the day. And so I've had athletes who will wake up and they're on the trainer at 3 o'clock in the morning, or they're at the pool at 3, the 24-hour fitness environment, and then they're back home doing that hard bike session before 6 o'clock in the morning without eating. And you catch that, and we have conversations about fueling prior to. So I think there are a lot of athletes out there from experience that are under fueling their workouts. At a minimum, they're just not eating enough prior to exercise. Um, the first thing in the morning, you're fasted already. You've been sleeping for 6, 8 hours. Um, you're pretty much depleted, and so to go into workouts um, that are intense in nature, specifically without replenishing, is over time we've heard of energy deficiencies in sport for both men and women, and injury that can result hormonal imbalances and just sometimes even disordered eating where we're trying to lose weight and we think that we need to do that by not eating before our workouts. Don't eat calories, burn a lot of calories. um, but in the endurance space that can be dangerous. And some of the things we've learned in endurance exchange, for instance, about protein consumption for endurance athletes, and what if we're doing training more than 5, 6 hours a week. um, yeah, so our fueling requirements are specifically higher than the average human. So that's what I've come across mostly as kind of the common maybe misconception, or at least practice. A lot of times it's just not informed. Folks don't have the time or aren't making the time. And so I help build strategies. Prepare the night before, overnight oats, give yourself an hour and 45 minutes to digest that stuff before you go into a session. If you're a person who can eat oats, and what that does to you. And then we compare and contrast. How did you feel when you fueled, and how did you feel when you didn't fuel? And then we can even look at the data that supports your ability to hit intensity levels when you've got food in your system and you've got the carbohydrate. And yeah, so that is probably up front and center the most common issue that I combat.
Hmm. You hit so many things that we probably can't go into, but no, really good things about the fueling. And yes, I was in those sessions about protein and was kind of blown away by how much more
Yeah,
protein that we need. Like, I think, I don't want to go into the studies, but like
sure.
there's this thing at my job where we have this app that talks about the protein consumption that we need, and it's between 70 grams and 120 grams, per day. And I'm thinking
Yeah,
like, oh, they said way more than that, right? So, you have to really focal and, get someone in who kind of understands those things. So anyway, I think that's really cool, and just really helpful information to share that if you think you're having enough protein, eat more, like especially if
yeah.
you are.
Yeah, I just sat in a good webinar yesterday with a particular company that's getting into the protein bar world, and who was at Endurance Exchange, and so I'll share that information with athletes. I'm a full-time student, post military service retirement, and so I'm studying public health and nutrition and dietetics, and kind of trajectory 3 years down the line, become a registered dietitian. I've interned for a total probably 9 months with registered dietitians who were certified in sports dietitian or dietetics. So I've been around the conversation for fueling and just optimal eating patterns and metabolic health for a decent amount of time. And so I try to speak with as much experience and evidence as possible. And it does inform my position on a lot of things, specifically timing for fuel and how many calories we need to eat and all those things. But
Mhm.
really just getting people to understand that what they should be eating on a daily basis, getting them to that point, regardless of exercise, and then making them kind of see that if you're only eating what you should be when you're not exercising and you're exercising, you're probably very, very deficient in what your body needs from an energy perspective. And we can do a little bit better. And these are the strategies that we use to snack and the types of food that are going to be nutrient dense and all of those things. So I really enjoy the nutritional component because there's so much information and noise out there from sources that may or may not be well versed or backed by science or evidence. And the nutrition industry has got a lot of unregulated product, supplements. There's a lot of supplementation out there, just largely expensive. It's $1 billion, multi-billion dollar industry. And so there's a lot of maneuvering and protecting. I want to protect athletes as much as possible, financially and physically and medically. Um, yeah, so getting them to just eat often is important. And this is, gender agnostic. Everybody's kind of in the same position, generally not eating enough.
Mhm. And what I didn't mention or we hadn't talked about is not only are you a, you know, triathlete, but long distance endurance triathlete, but you also do like the 50K. You're, no, I'll just say you're an ultra marathoner.
I've recently I did my first 50K 2 years ago. Um, I did the Marine Corps 50K as well last year, and I did some work up in Mammoth here in the Sierra Nevadas in California, and that was amazing. And that's a whole vibe. I mean, putting your feet in the dirt, that just the sound of your feet hitting the dirt
Bare
over
feet
and over. It's beautiful. The sound of running outside on a trail
with shoes or without? I'm just making
with
sure.
shoes. Oh
Okay,
yeah,
because when
yeah,
you said your feet hit, I
definitely.
was like, let
Oh
me make sure
yeah.
that's not in the
Oh
same.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's some folks that can get down like that. That's not me, but um, yeah, I I enjoy the ultra scene for sure. And it definitely informs. I mean, it's an endurance sport like no other. Your ability to be self-sustaining. The aid stations on the trail race are like little parties. Like it's just a really really fun and and I hate to use the word, we use it a lot, opportunity to be mindful. um, I mean, you're interacting with nature in a way that you obviously don't get in road running. I've seen like the deer that hops out at you, the bear that's in a tree, like all that stuff occurs crossing rivers and just opportunities that you don't get in the scene. Get to travel into different places. I've recently really started backpacking, which is funny because I've walked with a pack on my back for many years in the Marine Corps, but doing it as a civilian is much different. And the opportunity, those things blend, right? Being able to just pack up your life and walk out to the woods and camp for a couple of days and come back, and then put on a vest, put your gels and your nutrition and things you need on your back, and grab some poles and you run a little, you walk a lot, you hike a lot. Yeah, it's a different ball game. And so I want to get as much experience doing it as possible. And that translates to, being able to be informed and creating more tools for the toolkit in regards to coaching. I love coaching, run specific, half marathon, ultra marathoners as well. Yeah, that is a beautiful sport. It is. So I enjoy it. Got another one coming up mid-March here in Catalina. Take a little ferry over there and run around the hills, mountains out there before Oceanside 70.3 at the end of March. So
Nice, nice. And yes, you've done every distance in triathlon. Doing the backpacking. You're constantly not just coaching it, but you're living it.
Try to. I
Yeah.
do. Yeah. I like to speak from experience and use myself as a subject at times as well, all the time. So, yeah, definitely.
As uh, as we're wrapping up and sport evolves, you're striking me more and more as a purist when it
Mm.
comes to the sport, listening to your body, being mindful, taking care of yourself, wellness. And we're seeing tech be at an all-time high. Like new apps. I think Garmin just sent the thing about Garmin Plus, like try 30 days. Like we have all this technology, and it will be a conversation until anyone's in. But if you had to strip all that away for some of your beginner or some of your athletes, give me your gadgets, give me your power meter, give me your heart rate monitor, give me your carbon plates. What is the one analog skill you would want them to master first?
That's a very good question.
Thank you.
Yeah. An analog skill that I would want them to master first. Yeah. So all athletes start, regardless of sport, with RPE and this rate of perceived exertion. And so that ability to regulate based on feel is massively important before we introduce the data. So we all get reps in the way that I coach at doing that. You might have a watch on, the data's recording, and eventually I'll have it cached and stored. But I give you a chart for what 1 through 10 looks like for perceived exertion, and you just go out and execute. We do that for like 3 weeks across whatever sport we're doing. And that skill of well, what did I said run at a 3 or 4 for 2 hour, whatever it may be. How did that feel on the scale? And we go back to just referencing what feelings should look like or feel like, and what you executed, and trying to just marry those together. Um, so that's just the introduction into being mindful. Absolutely. I hope that answered your question. The other part is, yeah, I'm a huge kind of for those that are riding their bike, I'm a huge proponent of like bike safety, bike handling, and all those things. And going fast and being powerful, none of that matters if you're not safe and capable. And we often ride in places that are not necessarily conducive or you know um, don't support road cycling as much. And so being able to, when you get into a race, then you become potentially a hazard to yourself and others. And so being a capable and proficient bike handler is a massive um, kind of requirement and capability, because bad things happen when we crash our bike. You know what I mean? So those are huge. What's your bike handling looking like, and how can we improve it? And so getting the opportunity to ride with athletes from time to time is a luxury, but I enjoy doing it. And we just talk through some of the best practices, which kind of sometimes just kind of goes unmentioned. Right? We just assume that everybody knows how to ride their bike in a safe manner, but skipping over the basics can definitely lead to negative outcomes. And so yeah, the rate of perceived exertion and then bike handle will be things that we definitely focus on.
Awesome.
I hope that
All
answered.
right. Well, I'm telling you, I am you have really taken me out of my own safety zone of like feeling like I'm in control, right? Like I usually, and I'm sitting up here like, yeah, like
Is
just
that a good thing? I don't
hmm?
know. Is that a good thing that
It's a
I
great thing because
okay.
being in the district sometimes I think my nervous system is
Yeah,
activated at a higher level on a normal time. And like lately it's been really, really, really
I can
high.
imagine.
And
Yeah.
so hearing you speak, it's just been like,
Yeah.
hmm, like I'm able to take the deep breaths and it just feels like a really good, it feels good to hear another calming voice. Like people often tell me that my voice is calming,
Yeah,
but
agreed.
to get this on the receiving end is
Yeah.
like, oh wow, like almost sort of trance, like can put you in this, I listen to a lot of, I guess this is getting into, I listen to a lot of music that is very, I don't know how to classify it, but it's called like soaking music, where you can
Yeah.
just take deep breaths, you hear the music, and it really just calms you down a little bit. And a lot of times it's Christian based soaking music where I
Sure.
just kind of listen to it and just like zone out. And your voice had that type of effect.
Mm. Yeah,
Like it was
that
very calming. And I was just like, oh, I don't even know what I'm doing. Am I actually like, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to the podcast like intently to make sure I was connecting, excuse
Yeah.
me, make sure I was connecting, topics to make sure this is a fluid
You
interview.
wove it together fabulously. I'm not just saying that either. Like I felt like heard, and the active listening was very apparent for you to just. I need to tell you that like the amount of like um, gratitude that I have for you saying things that you've said in regards to how I've made you feel in this space about calming an individual in a place where we are hyper stimulated at a time like this, where I think we have a collective stress level that is probably hasn't been seen since the civil rights era. In a place like the district, which I love. I never knew that we called it that until this last time that I was in, for the marathon. People were like the district, and I was like, I like that. I love DC. It means a great deal. I'm just like being me, and the space that you have provided, the opportunity to just have a conversation about two people in the space who want to discuss all things endurance sports and all things connected to it, and just being able to like share openly about who I am as a business owner, as a coach, as a human, um, is I can't thank you enough, or because people are going to watch and listen, and maybe I listen to a little, maybe listen to all of it, maybe being able to advocate for our wellness in a variety of areas is massively important to me. I do consider myself a passionate person, and being able to like be a chill vibe to somebody is the greatest compliment. So yeah, thank you for entertaining the opportunity and thinking I was interesting enough to even recommend or request that I come on. Try Beginners Luck,
Oh
is
yeah.
thank you, Shonda. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I mean, I did say that this space during this season is like a decompression
Yeah,
zone, not a distraction.
yeah, absolutely.
And I have felt that. And so it is my hope that, others who are viewing this have heard that, they receive it, and they're able to take it with them on their day. And we're going to get into some rapid fire.
Okay,
Now we're fueling the fire. We're fueling people. We're going to do some rapid fire questions.
let's do
And
it.
I'm just going to start off coffee or matcha because I need to know like what fuels this chill vibe or both.
This coffee, yeah, I'm a 2 cup a day coffee, black, nothing in it.
Same, come
Yeah,
on.
yeah, straight up.
I like black
You
coffee
called
too.
me a purist, so you weren't far off.
I did. So I'm glad to know that. Who I'm scared to ask you, do you even listen to music? I mean, well, no, excuse me. You do. You listen to music back in your pre-Zen days. I would like to have known you back in the days when you were listening to like KRS-One or who else did you mention? You mentioned like a whole 90s
Yeah,
crew.
yeah. Q, Native Tongue,
Yes.
Public Enemy,
I
all
feel
of
like you
them.
were a whole problem. You were a whole
Oh,
problem back then.
it was a vibe. It
Yeah.
was different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can tell. Hence, at the very top of the podcast, I was like, wait, wait, wait. Some made me, my brain is not comprehending this tension because I just was sensing it. So let me ask you this. Do you listen to music now?
I
And if
do.
so, what's one song that is always in rotation?
Um, MF Doom, Metal Face Doom, may he rest in peace. Um, Formerly Zevluk X. Yeah, Accordion, off the Mad Villain album. Um, yeah, that is that beat, his cadence, his rhyme style, his wordplay. If you're not an MF Doom fan, or if you have not been introduced to Doom, it is an entire. I don't want to use the word subculture, but it is an entire just ecosystem of when we talk underground hip hop legend. Yeah. So there's not a day that goes by that I do not listen to Doom, but specifically Accordion is is one that stays in rotation.
Okay. Okay.
I am still a '90s hip hop head. Like
Through
that's
and through.
yeah. That's like a tattoo. It's just not going away.
Okay. Okay. I love it. Chamois cream, a little bit or half the tub?
A little bit, yeah. I'm a purist, aka naturalist. So I'll just use like vitamin E oil or a little like coconut butter. specifically on the trainer. For races, I don't do it because I got to put it on like 3 hours before I get in the water. Like it's useless by that time. I mean, maybe it's not useless, but I rarely put it on. Maybe I do before races, but I get on the trainer and I just put a little bit of like coconut butter on the sit bones, and I'm golden. I don't chafe. I'm lucky, maybe because I need bigger quads, but um, yeah, I don't really have issues on when I go out for a road ride. Like, yeah, I'm not putting it on, but on the trainer, you're just stuck in that same position. You don't get a whole lot of relief. So, yeah, I don't have
Coconut
a
butter.
brand.
I
Vitamin E
need to know more
oil,
about that
coconut
and
butter.
vitamin E. Good, good,
Mm-hmm.
good, good. Nutritionist, I have to ask this. Favorite post-race cheat meal?
I don't want to be that dude, but I do not like. I don't give into the like the cheat, the clean, the dirty type of things, and
Okay.
so um, because it puts us in dangerous places sometimes. But I think what I like post, yeah, workout training session. Ooh. So I have a coffee shop that I love that's right around the corner, and they do a donut situation over there. Again, I'm a plant eater. I'm a donut fan. So one of those blueberry situations, or like a Brazilian malasada, which has got like infused guava or whatever. It's just great. It, a donut. Yeah, a donut. Maybe two, but probably like one and a half donuts. Yeah, yeah, actually.
Well, I think all the people who indulge are probably really feeling good about their post-eat treats, that it's okay.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
it's a treat. It's a
Yeah.
treat.
The goal is to put carbs back in the body, as quickly as possible, and then get some good protein in there too, so you can have that like legit, balanced, nutrient dense meal afterwards with the 30 grams of protein like we learned about, and
Yeah.
whatever form of protein you choose. But
They have okay, well, let me not go there.
yeah,
One word to describe the perfect feeling of a perfect taper.
perfect feeling of a perfect taper. Powerful. Yeah, that's what I want to feel. I want to feel powerful during taper.
And we don't let anyone leave without answering this question. Do
Okay,
you pee on
I'm
the bike
scared.
or do you get off and take a proper pee break?
Say that again. I was talking about my fear. Okay.
What's your fear?
Whatever the question was going to be.
Oh,
But
okay. I thought, do you, oh gosh, let me figure out how to answer the question. Do you, how do I even ask the question
I
just
don't
so
know. I
quick? Oh
messed
my
up. I'm
gosh, this
sorry.
is real. Okay, okay. You see what I'm saying? Like this is real.
Yeah.
It happens to me. Okay. Do you pee
Something
on the
about me.
bike or do you get
Oh,
off and take a proper pee break?
oh. Am I going to get fined? Like I probably do.
No, just
They mail you a fine right now if you tell. Oh,
no.
it's just telling what I'm gonna. Yeah, I've I stopped once. My very first 70.3 at on the bike in a porta john. That was the last time, and I've done a lot of 70.3s and Ironman since then. So I practiced in training, probably too much information, peeing on the bike, and then I figured out how to do it. And so I'm definitely like left side. Make sure I have socks on so that my shoes don't require as much cleaning. I'm pretty intentional about peeing on the bike. And if you don't pee on the bike during 70.3, your run might, I don't know. Maybe we can ask the public about like, do you pee on the bike? I think you should pee once on the bike during a 70.3 distance. Definitely during an Ironman. If you're not peeing twice on the bike during an Ironman, there might be a problem. Like there's a real problem. If you don't pee on the bike during 70.3, I've done that once and I had a good run, but I'm all about peeing on the bike. But there's an etiquette. You got to look around. You can't like just do it and not pay attention. Downhill, wind's blowing, you could be a problem. And then people are fighting on the race course. So I appreciate peeing on the bike. Just be aware and of your surroundings.
This is the first unzen moment of the show. Like you, that question took you all out. I felt like that question took you back to Clark Atlanta. Like,
Yeah. You P, I don't know, but P is the button. You just press P and then things happen, I guess. I don't know.
but I guess last week, Rogina, excuse me, Dr. Rogina,
Yeah.
she basically said that she didn't pee. She pees on the run, but not on the bike. And I was like, how, Sway?
How I wanted to do that,
But I
but
do know some people who do, who don't, and maybe they sweat it out. I don't know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it is what it is. Thank you so, so, so much for
Oh,
being
my
on the show. We
pleasure.
have this saying that whenever you try beginner's luck, you always win. So if you're out there, you're thinking about trying, you are winning. With that said, if you love this podcast and you love your friends, send this to them. Make sure they're listening. Get them subscribed. You subscribe. We're on Facebook. well, more active on Instagram. We're on all the major platforms and we're on YouTube. Just Google Try Beginners Luck. It's only one of us. We're out there. Be sure to tune in. And for this time, we are going to be out. My name is Mashonda Miles, also known on social media as Mashonda Shines, and I got to be here with Mr. Stuart Shine. And guess what? We're out. Peace. Bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try beginner's luck, you always win.